Welcome to Successful Teaching for Acceptance of Responsibility. Section 8, Communication Strategy 2, Self-Responsible Language. Our next strategy is Communication Strategy 2, Self-Responsible Language. Remember that the mind is a powerful tool, and what students think is usually expressed out loud in the form of self-responsible or unself-responsible language. There are ways to teach students about self-responsible language and help them recognize the limiting language that they use that limits their self-responsibility. Please locate page 209, Communication Strategy 2, Self-Responsible Language. Follow along and highlight points as I introduce this topic and define terms. Self-responsible language is comprised of words and phrases that reveal an acceptance of responsibility for one's choices, thinking, language, emotions, and behaviors, as well as ownership for the subsequent outcomes and consequences. Examples include, I have created a lot of stress and anxiety for myself over this project. My hard work was instrumental to my success. I have decided to let go of this for now. Let's take a moment to read why it works for personal power in mental models. Students who have a strong sense of personal power in mental models have strong self-efficacy and take responsibility for their choices, thinking, language, emotions, and behaviors. They see these factors as within their control and work to self-regulate and manage them. Unself-responsible language is comprised of words and phrases that deny responsibility for one's choices, thinking, language, emotions, and behaviors, show a lack of ownership for the subsequent outcomes and consequences, and assign responsibility on someone or something else. For example, I can't do this. She made me mad. It was his fault, not mine. Let's take a moment to read why it works for personal power in mental models. Students who are low in personal power or mental models tend to have low self-efficacy and blame their choices, thinking, language, emotions, and behaviors on causes outside of their control. This undermines self-efficacy and perpetuates a victim mentality of blame and learned helplessness. Please remember, what we think and say becomes how we act or behave. It is important that students correct and self-regulate any unself-responsible language so they can be empowered. Limiting language is unself-responsible language that limits one's self-efficacy, responsibility, personal power, and mental models. The most frequently used limiting language phrases are I can't, just try, made me. Notice the quote on the bottom of page 209. The tongue is like the rudder of a ship. It may be small, but it controls the direction of the whole ship. This quote speaks to just how important student self-talk and out loud talk can be. Let's take a closer look at the limiting language phrases that can be detrimental to student success and responsibility. The first limiting language phrase we are going to discuss is the I can't statement. This is a phrase we frequently hear our students say. Educate for social emotional activities, and some of the activities we are going to do next are the activities you can use to teach students about limiting language. Please locate page 210, Limiting Language I Can't Statements. Work privately and individually and write 5 I can't statements that you believe are true for you in your life right now. Know that you are going to be sharing these statements with a partner. Please go to Canvas, Module Section 8, I Can't Statements Discussion Area. Work with a partner at home or school and ask the person to write 5 I can't statements that they believe are true for them in their life right now. Now, I want you to read the same statements but say I won't instead of I can't. Finally, I want you to read the same statements, but this time say, I choose not to, at the beginning of your statement. In a post to the discussion, reflect on the reactions you experienced as you read your statements with these 3 variations. Optionally, comment on a classmate's post in a meaningful way. What reactions did you experience as you read your statements with these 3 variations? Did the won't and choose not to phrases really zero in on who is accountable? Did you feel kind of whiny and stubborn when you used I won't? Did you find that won't and choose not to empowering because it reminds you that you have control over this and are responsible for it? Can you see why I can't is considered limiting language? Are you unsure if you agree with this? Can sometimes I can't truly just be I can't? Does using choose not to open the door to examining what might be standing in the way at any point in time? Perhaps you have not saved enough money yet, but once you do, you can switch your choose not to a choose to. Please notice the quote on the bottom of page 210 that summarizes this exercise. Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they are yours. We need to make I can't a topic of discussion with our students. Let's continue with our limiting language and discuss how students can challenge and turn around their I can't statements. Please locate page 211, Challenge I can't truths. As you may have thought, there are some I can't statements that are truly I can't, based on reality. For example, I can't grow 3 feet taller, if I'm fully grown. I can't swim across the Atlantic Ocean without stopping. I can't stay underwater for an unlimited amount of time without air. However, it is important to teach students to challenge their I can't statements and determine if they are truly I can't statements. You can begin to challenge I can't by examining some truths about I can't. Work individually, read the I can't truths on page 211, and highlight relevant points. After reading the paragraph, write why you agree or write a yeah, but statement that communicates what you disagree with or are questioning. What why or yeah, but comments did you make for the I can't truths? Did you write that I can't shows a lack of problem solving to find ways in which you can? Did you see a lot of I can't when it comes to emotion and holding a grudge? When you continue to hold a grudge, you give that person power over your mental happiness indefinitely. Do you like that this encourages some self-reflection and analysis as to whether these limitations are I can't or I can't right now? Please remember, you may want to go back over your I can't list on page 210 and determine if any of the I can't statements you listed are an example of a true I can't. Students have been bombarded in our culture with such a steady stream of I can't that the statement has become an automatic habit at the first sign of struggle. This type of limiting language can sabotage students' self-efficacy and academic growth. While it is true that students use I can't as a go-to phrase, we also need to examine how teachers respond when students say I can't. This is when we use Educate 5 Modeling and Teacher Talk. Please locate page 212 I can't teacher talk, just try. Follow along and highlight relevant points as I introduce this topic. Most of the time, when teachers hear I can't statements, they respond by saying, sure you can, just try. Their intent is admirable in that they are signaling to their students that effort or strategies are required that can move them through their I can't obstacles. However, just try is an ineffective response because students believe they are trying. Whenever anyone uses try by saying just try or I'm trying, you know that they have no real commitment to the task or ideas regarding what to do instead. Please notice the quote on page 212. Do or do not. There is no try. I'll try lacks commitment and lacks self-confidence. You do not want your pilot to try to land the plane, and you do not want your surgeon to try to do your surgery. What is really needed is commitment, effort, problem solving, and action. Let's do an exercise to show you what we mean. Please find a partner at home or at school. Decide who is going to be the speaker and who is going to be the tester. If you are the speaker, you need to hold your arm out to the side at shoulder height. I'm going to give the speaker a phrase to repeat. As the speaker repeats the phrase, the tester is going to gently but firmly push down the speaker's arm to test the strength of the arm. If you are the speaker, I want you to say, I will hold up my arm. I will hold up my arm as the tester pushes on your arm. Once again, I need the speaker to hold your arm out to the side, and this time repeat, I'll try to hold up my arm. I'll try to hold up my arm as the tester pushes on your arm. What differences did you notice in the strength of your arm as the two phrases were repeated? Switch roles with your partner and repeat the I will and repeat the I will and I'll try exercises. Discuss whether you get the same results or not. You can conduct another exercise and test your arm strength when thinking the phrase rather than saying the phrase out loud and note any differences. Please remember, this is an exercise you can do with your students to see the difference in mindset between will and try when tackling a task. This exercise is a way to spotlight the power of the mind and the power of our language when it comes to intention and action. Notice the quote on the bottom of page 212. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This quote shows the impact of this dilemma and how important it is to have ways to counteract the I can't statements. If we are eliminating the use of I can't and just try, we have to have phrases to use instead. Let's examine ways in which we can turn around the I can't statements. Please locate page 213, I can't turn around teacher talk. Please take a moment to read the information about I can't turn around teacher talk. Highlight relevant points as you read. Please remove your Stretch Risk Challenge sheet from your course folder. In the next Stretch Risk Challenge box, I want you to stretch your thinking and come up with another phrase you might say to your students to turn around the I can't statements you hear. What insights, thoughts, or questions do you have, and what new I can't turnaround statements did you write on your Stretch Risk Challenge sheet? Even though some of these statements ask students to pretend, fake it, or act as if, does it at least move them out of give-up mode? Did you notice that many of these statements employ visualization or intention? Does that move the brain into a different type of problem-solving mode? Do you teach your students to say, I can't do, but I can do, to focus students on what they can do and have them proceed from there? Do you ask your students, how could you start in your class? When your students say, I don't know how to do that, do you ask, what do you know? Could you say, what could you do instead of what you are doing? Do you think it would move students into problem-solving mode? Please remember, remind students that you really don't know for sure if you can do something until you put forth some effort. Remind students that there are strategies or strengths they can utilize, or a classmate they can ask for assistance. It is important for teachers to send an effort message. Students can act as if they can or act as if they can't. It is their choice. Please take a look at Appendix pages 12 and 13 and read Rest in Peace, the I Can't Funeral. In addition to the limiting language of I can't and just try, there is another limiting language phrase, made me. Please locate the subheading Limiting Language Made Me on the bottom of page 213. Follow along as I describe this limiting language phrase and highlight relevant points. Made me is another example of limiting language that blames external factors outside of the student for choices the student has made. Remember that students say out loud what they are thinking. They sometimes use unself-responsible language that expresses their thinking out loud as they blame others for choices they have made. She made me so mad that I had to punch her. It's his fault. I didn't want to throw the eraser, but he made me lose my temper. When students think and say made me, they are going to behave differently than if they accept that they are the one who chooses or controls how they feel and respond. Remind students to be accountable and own their choices. Remind them of the chain reaction for self-responsibility. What students think and say become what students do and believe. I am. Teach students to accept responsibility and ward off made me as early in the chain reaction as possible. What observations can you lend to the information regarding the limiting language made me? What points of agreement or disagreement do you have? Do you think that students with a victim mentality and those who like to act helpless tend to blame others quite frequently? Does made me relinquish control over what happens in one's life? Is it very disempowering? Abusers like to blame their victims for making them mad. Do they ever see themselves as the cause? Please remember, nobody can make you do anything. You choose to do it or not to do it. You choose to comply or defy. You choose to allow it if you do not regulate the situation or self-regulate your emotions. Now that we have just discussed self-responsible language and the limiting language I can't, just try, and make me, let's see if you can recognize the difference between self-responsible language and unself-responsible language. Please locate page 214, Analyzing Self-Responsible Language. Use this page or the corresponding items to print page and work individually. Mark the self-responsible statements with R, mark the unself-responsible statements with U, and underline or highlight the word or phrases that make it you. If you have time, reflect on why you marked your unself-responsible statements as you did. Please go to Canvas, Modules, Section 8, Analyzing Self-Responsible Language Discussion Area. Let's review whether these statements are indicative of self-responsible language or not. Please locate Appendix, page 14, Analyzing self-responsible language for the answers. Check your answers and mark any about which you have a question. For those that you marked, consult Appendix pages 15 through 18 for an explanation of the answer. After reading the explanation, mark any that you would like to discuss. In a post to the discussion area, let your instructor know what statements you would like an additional explanation. Optionally, comment on another classmate's post in a meaningful way. Please remember, there are many phrases that students as well as adults tend to say out of habit. It is important to increase your own and your students' self-awareness of the unself-responsible language you and your students might be using. Since our thinking and language guide our behavior, it is important to correct the unself-responsible language and replace it with language that is more self-responsible. We have discussed the duality between what we teach students is appropriate communication and self-responsible language and what they see modeled in the real world and on social media. Now that you understand the nuances of self-responsible language and limiting language, let's move what we have learned into the real world. Let's explore how you can shine a light on some of the unself-responsible language that students are exposed to and transform it. Please locate page 215, Transforming Unself-Responsible Language. Please go to Canvas, Modules, Section 8, Transforming Unself-Responsible Language discussion area. Use your personal electronic devices to find a form of communication that contains unself-responsible language. In a post to the discussion area, use the next slide in the editable Google slideshow to identify the poor manners, disrespectful phrases, or unself-responsible language in the communication. Then, recreate the communication using only self-responsible language. Review another classmate's post and comment on a meaningful way. What insights or questions do you have about transforming your unself-responsible language into self-responsible language? Were you astounded as to how many examples we have had to choose from of unself-responsible language? Do you wonder why our students are confused? They are getting such mixed messages when it comes to how we want them to communicate in school and what they are seeing modeled in society. Do you think your students would enjoy this activity? Does it show a powerful compare-contrast of appropriate communication and self-responsible language to outrageous, inappropriate examples? Do some of the examples, like the greeting card, seem strange when using unself-responsible language? Please remember, a lot of learning and internalization of character and standards occur when students examine what is expected in relation to what is modeled in the real world. It is important to emphasize that students have control over and must make a conscious choice to communicate with manners and mutual respect, using self-responsible language. Several Educate strategies in the 4E model for teaching responsibility can be used to teach your students these powerful communication skills. As the quote on the bottom of page 215 states, "Words are free. It's how you use them that may cost you." Since our thinking and language guide our behavior, it is important to make it a habit to correct the unself-responsible language and replace it with language that is more appropriate and self-responsible. We must emphasize to our students that when they see modeled in society may not be the most effective way to communicate. Let's take a moment to conduct a starburst. A starburst is a fireworks celebration. Clap your hands at your waist to make a noise and wiggle your hands up in the air like a firework shooting upward. Clap your hands at the top and then arch your arms downward like a firework exploding while saying ah in awe and wonder. This concludes Section 8, Communication Strategy 2, Self-Responsible Language. We will continue to modules Section 8, Self-Responsible Communication, Communication Strategy 3, Descriptive Teacher Talk.